Hey everyone, my name is Chen. Let's begin the new story.
The following account was recorded aboard the Krathax Dreadnought Blood Horizon, Standard Cycle 447.3. So here's the thing about being a war journalist embedded with the galaxy's most feared predator civilization. You expect carnage. You anticipate brutality. You literally sign your life insurance policy with 3 extra clauses, specifically covering death by proximity to Krathax hunting parties. What you don't expect is silence. My name is Zixentari, and I've covered 17 major conflicts across 9 sectors. I've watched the Krathax hunt crystalline hive minds through asteroid fields. I've documented their legendary takedown of the Vorath swarmlords, creatures that ate through starship hulls like they were made of sugar paste. I once saw a Krathax hunter named Drekthor bite through a combat mech's cockpit just to make a point about dominance. These beings, they don't do fear. Their entire culture is built on the philosophy that existence is a hierarchy, and violence determines your position in it. They've hunted on 73 classified death worlds, turning apex predators into trophies for their ceremonial halls. So when the Galactic Council flagged a newly contacted species from a garden world called Earth as potential quarry, the Krathax fleet practically vibrated with excitement. Humans, bipedal, relatively soft exteriors, no natural armor plating, no venom sacs, no plasma generation organs. Their homeworld rated a modest 6.4 on the Death World classification scale, which frankly is adorable when you consider the Krathax evolved on a planet rated 9.2, where the rain is mildly acidic and the smallest predators weigh 400 kilos. Admiral Throckmar himself led the briefing, his 4 eyes gleaming with that specific joy that only comes from finding new prey that doesn't know it's prey yet. Preliminary scans indicate no significant defensive capabilities, he'd announced, mandibles clicking in what passes for Krathax laughter. Their military installations are laughably scattered. Their fleet composition suggests they believe in something called diplomacy. He'd practically spat the word. This will be a hunt worthy of documentation, Zixtari. Make sure your recording equipment is functioning. I want the younger clans to study this. I remember nodding enthusiastically, my sensory stalks practically quivering with anticipation. This was going to be gold. A textbook demonstration of Krathax superiority against a species that probably thought the universe was a friendly place. The first 3 cycles of our approach went exactly as expected. We monitored their communications, delightfully naive chatter about peaceful contact protocols and cultural exchange opportunities. Their warships, and I use that term generously, were primitive fusion drive contraptions that looked like they'd been assembled by particularly ambitious children. Then we crossed into what they called contested space near one of their outer colonies, and something shifted. The Krathax bridge crew went quiet, not the focused silence of hunters stalking prey. Something else, something I'd never seen in 17 conflicts. "Admiral," the sensor operator said, her usual predatory confidence replaced with something that sounded almost like hesitation. "We're being pinged, multiple sources. They're not targeting us, they're just watching. Let them watch," Throckmar growled. But I noticed his secondary claws were extended, a reflexive threat display that Krathax only do when genuinely uncertain. That's when I received my first anonymous data packet. Someone in the fleet, identity encrypted, sent me a file marked classified, do not disseminate. Being a journalist of questionable ethics and excellent curiosity, I obviously opened it immediately. It was surveillance footage from a skirmish 3 cycles prior, a minor engagement between a Krathax scout group and what appeared to be a single human vessel, the kind of encounter that should have lasted approximately 47 seconds and ended with the human ship as a debris field. The footage lasted 4 hours. I watched as the Krathax scouts, a trio of seasoned hunters, who'd personally claimed kills on 8 different apex species, pursued the human ship through an asteroid cluster. Standard tactics. Corner the prey, demonstrate superiority, claim the kill. The human ship wasn't running. Not exactly, it was doing something else. "They're studying us," one of the Krathax scouts had said, voice tight with confusion. "Their movements, they're not evasive, they're experimental." Then the human ship stopped. Just stopped. Dead in space, fully visible, completely vulnerable. The Krathax scouts, naturally, interpreted this as surrender. They closed in, weapons hot, already arguing about who'd get which trophy pieces. That's when the other human ships appeared. Not from hyperspace. They'd been there the entire time, covered in some kind of adaptive camouflage that didn't just fool sensors but apparently fooled naked eye observation at close range. 12 of them, arranged in a formation that suggested they'd been waiting in that exact configuration for hours. "It's a trap," the lead scout had screamed, far too late. But here's the thing that made my sensory stalks go rigid with instinctive dread. The humans didn't fire immediately. They didn't need to prove their superiority or demonstrate dominance. They just efficiently surrounded the Krathax scouts, matched their every evasive maneuver with perfect predictive accuracy, and systematically disabled each ship's propulsion systems without destroying them. Then they towed the disabled ships back to Krathax territory and released them with a single message: "We don't want your deaths, we want you to remember this." The footage ended with one of the Krathax scouts, a veteran named Kreshtok, who'd hunted on 49 worlds, saying something I'd never heard from a Krathax warrior. "They knew we'd come, they prepared for us, not like prey prepares, like something that's been hunted before and decided to stop being prey." I sat in my quarters watching that footage 17 times, trying to understand what bothered me about it. Then it clicked. The humans hadn't won through superior strength or better weapons. They'd won through patience, through the willingness to wait, motionless, in uncomfortable positions for hours just to prove a point. What kind of species does that? What kind of evolutionary pressure creates beings who can turn their predatory instincts into something so calculated? I needed more data. Journalists always need more data, especially when the data suggests the story you thought you were covering is completely different from reality. Over the next 2 cycles, I quietly reached out to contacts across the fleet, offered anonymity in exchange for information. What I got back made my circulatory fluid run cold. There were dozens of these encounters, small skirmishes, probing attacks, each one ending the same way: Krathax hunters engaging what appeared to be easy prey, only to discover they'd walked into elaborately prepared scenarios designed not to kill them, but to teach them. One particularly disturbing report came from a deep space patrol that had intercepted a human supply convoy. Standard raid, minimal resistance expected. The convoy was protected by a single destroyer that looked like it had seen better decades. The Krathax boarding party consisted of 20 elite hunters. The human destroyer's crew complement was listed as 37. The boarding action lasted 6 minutes. When it was over, all 20 Krathax hunters were alive but restrained, their weapons disassembled with what the report described as almost insulting efficiency. The humans had used non-lethal suppression methods and what appeared to be extensive knowledge of Krathax physiology to target pressure points and sensory clusters that even most Krathax didn't know they had. The human ship captain, a female named Martinez, had personally addressed each captured hunter by name and rank before releasing them. "We've studied your culture," she'd said, her translator rendering the words with uncomfortable precision. "We know what capturing and releasing hunters means to you. Consider this a demonstration of our seriousness about peace. But understand, we've also studied every way to kill you. We simply choose not to, yet." That word, yet, it hung in the report like a threat wrapped in courtesy. I started noticing changes in the fleet, conversations that stopped when I approached, senior hunters reviewing tactical databases, with expressions I'd never seen on Krathax faces, uncertainty mixed with something that looked suspiciously like caution. Then came the incident in the command deck. Admiral Throckmar was reviewing engagement protocols with his senior staff when I entered to discuss my coverage permissions. The tactical display showed human territorial space, marked with the standard prey species designation. "We should reconsider the direct approach," one of the senior hunters was saying. "Intelligence suggests their defensive posture is more sophisticated than initially. We do not reconsider when facing prey," Throckmar had roared, slamming 4 fists on the command table. But I noticed his voice lacked its usual absolute conviction. "They are soft-bodied, tool-dependent creatures who've barely left their home system. Our ancestors hunted megafauna that would consume their entire military in minutes." "Admiral," the intelligence officer said quietly, pulling up a file that made my recording implants automatically activate, "there's something you should see, something the Council tried to suppress." The file was marked with security encryption I'd never seen before, 3 overlapping warning symbols and a timestamp from 4 cycles ago. It was an intercepted human military communication, not tactical data, not battle plans. Something far more disturbing, a historical archive titled Species Memory Project Comprehensive Conflict Documentation. The archive contained everything: Every species humans had encountered, every diplomatic exchange, every conflict, no matter how minor, recorded with obsessive detail, cross-referenced, analyzed, and stored in distributed databases across their entire network. But that wasn't the disturbing part. The disturbing part was the metadata. Each entry was tagged with threat assessment, vulnerability analysis, and, here's what made my sensory stalks retract in instinctive dread, escalation protocols. I watched Admiral Throckmar's face go through an expression I'd never documented on a Cruthax before, the slow realization that they'd misunderstood something fundamental. They document everything, the intelligence officer continued, voice barely above a whisper, every encounter, every attack, every slight, and they share it. Their entire species has access to this data. Every human, civilian or military can access detailed information about every species that's ever wronged them. So they keep records, Throckmar said, but his mandibles were tight. Prey species often try to compensate for physical weakness with information gathering. Sir, it's not just records. Look at the escalation protocols. The file expanded, showing a document that appeared to be standard human military doctrine. The title made my circulatory system forget how to function properly. Proportional responses for peacetime, wartime protocols for species-level threats. I'm going to quote directly from that document because I want you to understand exactly what we found. In the event of systematic aggression against human civilian or military personnel by a hostile species, the following protocols will be enacted. Phase 1. Comprehensive intelligence gathering on aggressor species including biological, cultural and technological vulnerabilities. Phase 2. Targeted demonstrations of capability designed to communicate the cost of continued aggression. Phase 3. If phases 1 and 2 fail to achieve deterrence, escalation to total strategic warfare with focus on aggressor species' critical infrastructure, supply chains and high-value leadership targets. Objective. Complete strategic capitulation through demonstration of human commitment to proportionally disproportionate response. Let me translate that from military bureaucrat speak into something more honest. If you hurt us, we'll study you. If you keep hurting us, we'll educate you. If you still keep hurting us, we'll erase everything you've ever built until your species begs for the mercy you didn't show ours. The Cruthax bridge crew, warriors who'd hunted across the galaxy, who'd claimed trophies from beings that could crack spaceship hulls with their bare appendages, stood absolutely still as they processed this. This is psychological warfare, Throckmar said, but his voice had lost its certainty, attempting to intimidate us with documentation and threats. Admiral, I found myself saying, my journalist instincts overriding my survival instincts. Permission to share an observation? He gestured acknowledgement with one claw, eyes still fixed on the human document. I've covered 17 conflicts. I've never seen a species that documents their own responses with this level of clinical precision. Most species threaten. Humans promise. They're telling anyone who reads this exactly what they'll do, in what order, and why. That's not intimidation. That's warning. The intelligence officer finished. They're genuinely trying to prevent conflict by being completely transparent about the consequences. A long silence filled the bridge. The kind of silence that happens when predators realize they've been looking at the situation completely wrong. Pull up every documented human conflict, Throckmar ordered. Everything in council records. What we found over the next 3 hours changed everything. Humans had been in exactly 7 military conflicts since achieving spaceflight. 7. By Cruthax standards, that's practically pacifistic. Most species have more conflicts than that before they develop warp capability. But every single one of those 7 conflicts ended the same way. Human victory through increasingly creative and disturbing applications of something the reports called sustained commitment, despite cost. There was a border dispute with a species called the Zathrin. Minor territorial disagreement should have been resolved diplomatically. The Zathrin decided to make a point by destroying a human civilian station, killing 43,000 people. The humans' response wasn't immediate retaliation. It was 3 months of comprehensive intelligence gathering, followed by a series of surgical strikes that systematically dismantled every single Zathrin military installation across 4 star systems without causing a single civilian casualty. Then they broadcast detailed specifications for every Zathrin weapon system, effectively nullifying their entire strategic advantage, and offered a peace treaty. The Zathrin accepted immediately, terrified by an enemy that could hold grudges while simultaneously offering mercy. Another conflict involved a raider species that captured a human exploration vessel. Standard piracy scenario. Ransom demands. The humans paid the ransom, got their people back, and everyone thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. Over the next 2 years, human intelligence services quietly tracked down every single member of that raider group. Not to kill them, to systematically dismantle their entire support network, freeze their assets, expose their identities to their victims, and ensure they'd never be able to operate again. The message was clear: you took something from us, we'll take everything from you. Slowly, methodically, until you understand that we remember. I found myself staring at Admiral Throckmar, watching as the galaxy's most feared predator species' greatest hunter processed information that contradicted everything his culture believed about hierarchy and strength. "They don't fight like prey," he said finally, voice quiet. "They fight like something that used to be prey and evolved past it." "Sir?" the communications officer interrupted. "We're receiving a transmission from human space. It's..." The screen activated, showing a human female in what I'd learned to recognize as military uniform. Her rank insignia suggested senior command. Her expression suggested she was about to ruin someone's entire day. "Admiral Throckmar of the Krafak's dreadnought Blood Horizon," she said, and I noticed she pronounced his name perfectly, without the translator artifacts that usually plague cross-species communication. "I am Fleet Admiral Chen of the Human Defense Coalition. We're aware of your fleet's position and presumed intentions. Before you proceed, I'd like to share something with you." The display changed, showing what appeared to be a children's educational facility on Earth. Human younglings no more than 6 or 7 cycles old, sitting in a learning environment. "This is a 4th grade history class in Beijing," Admiral Chen continued. "They're currently studying the Second Sino-Japanese War, which occurred over 400 years ago by our calendar. Every child in that room can tell you detailed information about events their great-great-great-grandparents experienced. They know names, dates, places, consequences." The image shifted to another facility, then another. Different locations, different age groups, same pattern. Humans teaching their young about conflicts from their distant past with uncomfortable precision. "We teach our children to remember," Chen said, "not out of hatred, but out of recognition that forgetting invites repetition. Every human learns from childhood that actions have consequences that echo across generations." She leaned forward, and her expression made my recording implants struggle to process the combination of emotions. Not anger, not threat, but something far more disturbing. Calm, absolute, certainty. "So before you decide to test whether humans are suitable prey, Admiral, I need you to understand something fundamental about our species. We don't forget, we don't forgive strategically motivated violence, and we don't stop, ever. If you attack us, every human in existence will have access to detailed information about your species within hours. Our children will learn about you in their history classes. Our military will study your every vulnerability, and your civilization will become a case study in why some prey isn't worth hunting." She paused, and I swear I could hear hearts beating on the silent bridge. "We're offering you something the Zathran and 17 other species have learned to appreciate. The opportunity to not become another chapter in our history books. Because once you're in there, once we remember you as an enemy," her smile was thin, professional, and absolutely terrifying, "we'll still be studying ways to defeat you long after your civilization has forgotten this conversation ever happened." The transmission ended. Admiral Throckmar sat motionless for approximately 47 seconds. Then he did something I'd never seen a Krafak's admiral do in 17 conflicts. He ordered the fleet to withdraw. "Sir?" one of his senior hunters questioned, mandibles clicking with confusion. "We outnumber them. Our weapons are superior. Our hunting experience is irrelevant," Throckmar cut him off. "Because we're not hunting prey. We're confronting something that's been hunted, learned from it, and decided to weaponize memory itself." He turned to face me, all 4 eyes reflecting something I'd never documented in a Krafak's warrior. "Zixanhari, delete your combat footage. This hunt is over before it begins, and I need you to do something for me." "Sir?" "Find out everything you can about human retaliation strategies, every documented case, every whispered report. I need to know what we're choosing not to face." That's how I ended up spending the next 3 cycles diving into the darkest corners of galactic intelligence networks, chasing rumors and classified footage about what happens when humans decide someone has crossed the line from adversary to enemy. What I found didn't just change my career, It changed my understanding of what it means to be a predator in a universe where some prey evolved into something far, far worse. Supplemental Investigation Log, Journalist 6 Tari, Cycle 447.6. Here's what they don't tell you in journalism school. Sometimes the story finds you in the middle of the night, transmitted through 17 layers of encrypted routing, from a source who identifies themselves only as someone who survived silence. I was 3 cycles into my investigation when the data packet arrived. No return signature, no authentication markers, just a file labeled "Why the Council Screams When Humans Stop Talking," and a single line of text: "You asked the right questions. Here are the answers that'll keep you awake forever." I should have reported it to Fleet Security. I should have flagged it as potential psychological warfare. I should have done literally anything except what I actually did, which was open it immediately while my sensory stalks quivered with a combination of dread and journalistic excitement. The file contained 73 documented incidents, 73 times where human military forces had gone completely, horrifyingly silent during active combat operations, and 73 detailed aftermath reports explaining exactly why galactic military doctrine now includes a specific protocol. If human communications cease during engagement, assume tactical level catastrophe is imminent and retreat immediately. Let me walk you through the first incident chronologically, because it sets the template for everything that came after. The Vrellan incursion, Cycle 442.1. Before most species had even heard of humanity, the Vrellan were, and technically still are, a mid-tier military power. Aggressive expansion philosophy, standard imperial conquest model. They'd successfully absorbed 17 species into their cooperative empire, which is what fascists call occupation when they want to sound diplomatic. When the Vrellan encountered humanity's outer colonies, they did what they always did: demanded submission, received polite refusal, and responded with overwhelming military force. Textbook aggression. They bombed 3 human agricultural stations, killed approximately 6,000 colonists, and then broadcast their standard victory message about humanity joining the Vrellan Empire or facing extinction. The human response came exactly 47 hours later. Not a diplomatic protest, not a military counterstrike, a simple transmission to the Vrellan High Command. Acknowledged. Escalation protocols initiated. May your ancestors forgive what you've forced us to become. The Vrellan interpreted this as dramatic posturing. Prey species often make grandiose threats when facing superior force. The Vrellan fleet, consisting of 47 warships, advanced toward the human core colonies expecting token resistance. That's when the humans went silent. Not radio silence, not communication blackout. Complete tactical silence across all frequency ranges, all sensor bands, all monitoring systems. The human ships just stopped transmitting, stopped responding, stopped existing in any detectable communication framework. The Vrellan fleet commander, a veteran named Thexquil who'd conquered 9 systems, later testified that his first reaction was triumph. They've surrendered without fighting. They understand the hierarchy. This will be easier than projected. It took 12 minutes for him to realize that silence didn't mean surrender. It meant the humans had stopped warning them. The first Vrellan ship disappeared from sensors at timestamp 14:23:17. Just vanished. No explosion, no debris field, no distress signal. One moment it was there, the next it wasn't. The fleet immediately went to combat alert, scanning for threats, weapons hot, expecting ambush. Nothing. Silence. Empty space. 17 minutes later, a second ship vanished, then a third, then 2 more simultaneously. The Vrellan fleet, now genuinely panicked, began random evasive maneuvers, broadcasting on all frequencies, demanding the humans reveal themselves and fight with honor. Silence. A junior officer on the Vrellan flagship detected something and screamed into the command channel, "They're underneath us. They've been matching our position perfectly for the last 40 minutes. The humans hadn't been hiding in empty space. They'd been hiding in the Vrellan fleet's own sensor shadows, using predictive movement algorithms to stay in the exact blind spots created by the Vrellan ship's own scanning patterns. They'd been there the entire time, watching, waiting, studying how the Vrellan responded to fear. When the Vrellan finally detected them, they counted 23 human vessels against their remaining 42 ships. That should have been manageable odds. Except the humans had spent those silent minutes attaching something to the hulls of 15 Vrellan ships, not bombs. Something worse. Specialized devices that, according to the classified report I was reading, were designed to override the Vrelin ship's reactor safeties and cause simultaneous catastrophic failures. The human fleet commander, a man named Admiral Kowalski, broke radio silence exactly once. "You killed 6,000 farmers. We're going to make you remember their names." Then the devices activated. 15 Vrelin ships suffered critical reactor failures within a 4-second window. Not explosions, controlled failures that left the crews alive but completely helpless, drifting in space, life support failing, waiting for rescue that would take hours to arrive. The remaining Vrelin ships broke formation and retreated, abandoning their disabled comrades because that's what panic does to military discipline. Here's where it gets truly disturbing. The humans didn't pursue. They didn't finish off the disabled ships. They just broadcast a message to the retreating Vrelin fleet on a continuous loop. It was an audio file. 6,000 voices. Men, women, children, the colonists from the agricultural stations. Their last communications before the Vrelin bombardment killed them, saying goodbye to loved ones, singing lullabies to children, praying in languages I didn't recognize, making jokes about seeing each other again someday. 6,000 voices, playing on repeat, for 17 hours straight, while the disabled Vrelin ships drifted, and their crews listened and understood exactly what they'd destroyed. When Vrelin rescue ships finally arrived, they found their warriors in various states of psychological collapse. 3 had committed suicide, 17 more were catatonic. The rest were conscious but reported the same phenomenon. They couldn't stop hearing those voices. Even after the transmission ended, even after they were rescued, even cycles later, the Vrelin Empire surrendered to humanity exactly 96 hours after the incident. Complete capitulation. Not because the humans had superior firepower, because they demonstrated something far more terrifying, the capacity to make you feel what you'd done. The peace treaty included a clause that made my circulatory fluid run cold. The Vrelin Empire acknowledges the deaths of 6,247 human colonists and agrees to maintain a permanent memorial archive accessible to all citizens, ensuring these individuals are remembered in perpetuity. Failure to maintain this memorial constitutes an act of war. The humans had weaponized memory itself. They'd turned remembering the dead into a treaty obligation. I sat in my quarters, staring at that report, trying to process the implications. Then I opened the second incident file, the Korthax Mercenary Crisis, Cycle 443.8. Korthax mercenaries were some of the most efficient killers in the galaxy. They operated on a simple philosophy: accept contract, eliminate target, collect payment, repeat. No moral complications, no ethical considerations, just professional violence, executed with clinical precision. A Korthax company accepted a contract to eliminate a human diplomatic mission, standard political assassination. 23 diplomats, 47 support staff, all killed in a coordinated strike that the Korthax considered a masterpiece of operational efficiency. They collected their payment and moved on to the next contract, completely unconcerned about consequences. After all, they were mercenaries. They operated in legal grey zones specifically designed to avoid retaliation. 3 months later, the Korthax Mercenary Guild received a package, no return address, no identifying markers, just a data crystal and a note: "We found all of you." The crystal contained comprehensive dossiers on every single member of that mercenary company, their real names, which most had kept hidden for decades, their families' locations, their financial networks, their safe houses, their backup identities, their escape routes, everything. And at the bottom of each dossier, a simple message: "We know where you sleep. We know who you love. We know every place you've ever felt safe. We're not going to kill you. We're going to make you spend the rest of your lives wondering when we'll decide to." The Korthax company disbanded within a week. 12 members turned themselves into authorities, preferring imprisonment to living under that kind of psychological pressure. 3 committed suicide. The rest went into deep hiding, abandoning their entire previous lives. But here's what made that incident legendary in intelligence circles. The humans never actually deployed forces against them. They just researched them, found them, and let them know they'd been found. The threat was entirely psychological, and it worked perfectly. The Korthax Mercenary Guild, in an unprecedented move, issued a galaxy-wide directive: do not accept contracts targeting human interests. The payment is never worth what comes after. I kept reading, incident after incident, each one following the same disturbing pattern: humans going silent during combat, then doing something that demonstrated not superior firepower, but superior commitment to making their enemies understand consequences. There was the Hexian Border War, where humans spent 6 months infiltrating Hexian military networks, not to sabotage them, but to learn every single soldier's name, rank, and family situation. Then they broadcast personalized messages to each Hexian warrior, explaining exactly what would happen to their specific families if the war continued. Not threats of violence, just detailed descriptions of the legal and economic consequences that would ensure those families suffered for generations. The Hexian military, confronted with soldiers who suddenly cared more about protecting their families than following orders, collapsed into mutiny within 3 days. There was the Plenthok raid, where a Plenthok pirate fleet captured a human cargo vessel. Standard piracy scenario, ransom demands. The humans paid immediately, got their people back, and everyone assumed it was over. It wasn't. The humans tracked down that pirate fleet across 14 star systems over 2 years. They didn't attack, they just followed. Appearing in sensor range occasionally, broadcasting messages like "We're still here, still watching, still remembering." The psychological pressure broke the pirates before any shots were fired. They started making mistakes, turning on each other, seeing human ships in sensor ghosts. 3 of them went insane from the stress. The rest eventually surrendered to authorities, just to escape the feeling of being perpetually hunted. And then there was the incident that made the Galactic Council create the Special Alert Protocol for Human Combat Silence. The Tekresh Atrocity, Cycle 445.2. The Tekresh were a proud warrior culture, honorable combat, glory in battle, all the standard martial philosophy stuff. When they encountered humanity, they proposed a ritual combat to determine territorial boundaries. Very civilized, very traditional. The humans agreed, selected champions, and lost the ritual combat legitimately. The Tekresh, interpreting human honor culture as weak, decided to press their advantage. They attacked a human medical station in neutral space, killing everyone inside, including, and this detail becomes important, 347 medical personnel who were treating refugees from 7 different species. The Tekresh expected angry protests, military posturing, perhaps a call for ritual combat rematch. What they got was silence. The human fleet appeared in Tekresh space exactly 63 hours later, 57 vessels, no communication, no demands, no threats, just silence. The Tekresh fleet, confused but confident, engaged the human forces expecting traditional combat, ship-to-ship warfare, honor duels, the sort of glorious battle their culture celebrated. The humans ignored them completely. Instead, they systematically destroyed every single Tekresh military production facility, every shipyard, every weapons factory, every training center. They didn't target population centers, they didn't kill civilians. They just methodically eliminated the Tekresh's capacity to wage war. When the Tekresh fleet tried to intercept, the humans simply left, jumped out, came back somewhere else, destroyed another facility, left again. This went on for 17 days. The Tekresh, warriors bred for direct combat, couldn't adapt to an enemy that refused to engage in their cultural framework. They couldn't understand forces that prioritized strategic dismantlement over glorious battle. On the 18th day, the humans broke their silence with a single transmission. You killed healers. You killed people who'd taken oaths to help anyone, regardless of species. You violated the one universal principle that transcends culture. Medical personnel are off limits. So we're not going to kill you. We're going to make sure you can never kill anyone again. The humans had completely dismantled the Tekresh military infrastructure without causing significant casualties. Then they left, just withdrew from Tekresh space entirely. But they'd made their point. The Tamrikowash could rebuild, theoretically, but they'd never forget the species that had turned their proudest warriors into helpless observers, while their civilization's capacity for violence was systematically erased. The Tekresh sued for peace within a month. The treaty included clauses about medical neutrality that became standard across 7 sectors, and the Galactic Council, finally understanding what human combat silence actually meant, issued the Special Alert Protocol. If human military forces cease communication during active engagement, all nearby vessels should withdraw immediately and request council mediation. Silent humans are not preparing to surrender. They're preparing to teach lessons. I was 70 pages into classified reports when my door chime activated. I nearly deleted everything in panic before realizing it was Admiral Throckmar himself. "May I enter?" he asked, which was unusual. Krathak's admirals don't usually request permission for anything. I gestured acknowledgement, trying to hide my data displays. He noticed anyway. Of course he did. "You're researching the silence protocols," he said. "Not a question." "Sir, I can explain." "Don't." He settled into a position approximating sitting, which Krathaks rarely do around other species. "I've been reading the same reports. The Council gave me access after we withdrew. They wanted me to understand what we'd avoided." He pulled up a holographic display that made my recording implants automatically start archiving. "This is classified at the highest level," he said quietly. "But you deserve to know what you've stumbled into, Zextari. You asked why the Council created a special alert for human combat silence. I'm going to show you the incident that made them realize they had no choice." The hologram showed a stellar system I didn't recognize. 3 inhabited planets, robust defensive networks, a civilization that appeared well-established and militarily competent. "The Zalketh hegemony," Throckmar explained. "Powerful empire. They controlled 47 systems, advanced weapons, strong fleet, and they made a decision that ended their civilization as a galactic power. What did they do? They captured a human colony ship, 300,000 civilians, mostly families. The Zalketh demanded territorial concessions, threatening to execute hostages if humans didn't comply. I felt my sensory stalks retract instinctively. The humans didn't negotiate. Oh, they negotiated. Offered everything the Zalketh demanded. Territorial concessions, resource rights, technology transfers, everything. So the hostages were released? Throckmar's expression was the Krathak's equivalent of profound sadness. The Zalketh took the concessions and executed the hostages anyway. Broadcasted across multiple channels. Wanted to demonstrate their power, their willingness to follow through on threats. Standard Imperial intimidation tactics. The hologram shifted, showing what appeared to be a massive human fleet assembling. The human response began exactly 92 hours later. 416 vessels, the entire Human Defense Coalition fleet. They entered Zalketh space and went completely silent. What happened? For 73 days, absolutely nothing. The human fleet just existed, in Zalketh territory, not attacking, not communicating, just present. The Zalketh tried everything. Diplomatic outreach, threats, direct attacks. The humans dodged every attack, didn't return fire, and maintained complete silence. I don't understand. What were they doing? Throckmar manipulated the hologram, showing data streams I couldn't fully interpret. Studying, learning, mapping every single Zalketh facility, every military base, every government installation, every power grid, every communication hub, every single piece of infrastructure that made their civilization function. For 73 days. For 73 days, and on day 74, they struck. The hologram exploded into tactical displays that made my mind struggle to process the coordination. In exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes, the human fleet destroyed, disabled or captured every single Zalketh military asset, every weapons platform, every ship, every defense station, simultaneously, across 47 star systems. I couldn't speak. The logistical precision required for that kind of operation was beyond anything I'd ever documented. But here's what made the Council create the special alert, Throckmar continued, and his voice had dropped to barely above a whisper. The humans didn't stop there. They systematically dismantled the Zalketh government infrastructure, not through violence, through information warfare. They released comprehensive evidence of government corruption, war crimes and internal conflicts directly to Zalketh civilians. They exposed every secret, every hidden crime, every betrayal that the Zalketh leadership had committed against their own people. They turned the civilization against itself, I said, understanding flooding through me. Worse, they gave the Zalketh people the tools to hold their own leaders accountable. Then they left, just withdrew completely. The Zalketh Empire collapsed into civil war within a month, not from human occupation, but from their own citizens demanding justice. The hologram showed the aftermath, fragmented territories, fractured governments, a once powerful empire reduced to squabbling fragments. The Zalketh leadership who'd ordered the hostage executions, Throckmar said. They were tried by their own people, using evidence the humans had provided, found guilty, executed according to Zalketh law. The humans never had to pull a trigger, they just made sure everyone knew what their leaders had done. He deactivated the hologram and looked at me with all 4 eyes. That's when the Council understood. Human silence during combat doesn't mean they're preparing weapons. It means they're preparing consequences. They go quiet because they're thinking, planning, calculating exactly how to make you understand what you've done in ways you'll never forget. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you're a journalist, zixed Harry, and this story needs to be told, not to frighten species, but to make them understand what humans actually are, which is what? The only species in the galaxy that evolved past being prey by becoming something far more terrifying than any predator, a species that weaponized empathy, memory, and patience. They don't just win battles, they make you feel the weight of what you've done, they make you remember, forever. He stood to leave, then paused. The Council's Special Alert Protocol? It's not really about combat tactics, it's about recognizing when you've crossed a line with a species that will spend decades, centuries if necessary, making sure you never forget where that line was. After he left, I sat in silence processing everything I'd learned. Then I received one final transmission from my anonymous source. It was a video file, dated current cycle, marked Live Broadcast Human Cultural Archive. I opened it, expecting military footage. Instead, I saw what appeared to be a massive memorial complex on Earth. Kilometers of walls covered in names, millions of them. A human woman was giving a tour to a group of children. This is the Remembrance Archive, she explained. Every person who's died in conflict involving humanity is recorded here. Not just humans, everyone. The people we fought against, the people we fought beside, the civilians caught in crossfire, everyone. One child raised their hand. Why do we remember the enemies too? The woman knelt down to the child's level. Because remembering someone means they mattered. It means their death had meaning, even if they were on the wrong side. And because if we forget how to see our enemies as people, we become the kind of species that deserves to be forgotten. The camera panned across walls covered in names in hundreds of languages. Human names next to Vrellan names next to Zalketh names, all equal, all remembered. And suddenly I understood what made humans truly terrifying to species like the Krathax. They didn't just remember their own dead, they remembered everyone. They carried the weight of every conflict, every casualty, every consequence. And that terrible empathy, that refusal to forget anyone suffering, even their enemies, gave them something most predator species could never understand: moral clarity backed by absolute commitment. When humans went silent during combat, they weren't preparing to kill you. They were preparing to make you live with what you'd done, forever. The final entry in my investigation log came 3 cycles later, after Admiral Throckmar officially recommended that the Krathax Empire establish full diplomatic relations with humanity. The recommendation included a phrase that became famous in Krathax military academies: "We are hunters who've ruled through strength for millennia, but we've encountered a species that rules through memory. And in a universe where empires rise and fall, strength fades and glory dims, the only thing that truly lasts is what others remember about you. Choose wisely what you want to be remembered for." I published my full investigation as a 7-part documentary series. It's been viewed across 43 star systems. I've received death threats from militant factions who think I'm spreading human propaganda. I've received job offers from human media companies who appreciate thorough journalism. But the message that haunts me came from an elderly human woman who watched my documentary. She sent a simple note: "Thank you for understanding. We don't want to be feared. We want to be heard. But if the only way to make you listen is to make you afraid of what happens when you don't, then yes, we'll use that fear, because being forgotten is the only thing we fear more than death." I think about that message every time I see the Council's Special Alert Protocol flash across military networks. Warcanting, human forces have ceased communication during active engagement. All vessels advised to withdraw and request mediation. Silent humans are not defeated. They are deliberating. Retreat while they're still giving you the option. And I understand now why even the galaxy's apex predators learned to fear the prey that evolved past fear itself. Because in the end, the most dangerous species isn't the one with the sharpest teeth. It's the one that never ever forgets how it felt to be hunted, and will spend eternity making sure no one else ever has to feel that way again, even if it means becoming the thing everyone else fears.
What's your take on humanity's strategy? Should we weaponize memory, or is there a better way? Drop your thoughts below. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and subscribe for more mind-bending HFY tales. The galaxy awaits.